in our society now, we don't have a rites of passage. And when you think about human history, boys had to do something to earn manhood. What does it say? On Saturday morning, there's rites of passage for young men. It's 12 to 18 years old, and it's a 2-mile obstacle and endurance course. And if we don't teach them, who is?
Hey guys, thank you for tuning into the Patriot Point Show. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the video.
Randy, you had brought your son to a weekend getaway.
Yeah.
If you wanted to tell us a little bit about that, because that's essentially what we're talking about. You know, you're developing him to be a man. It was manhood he was entering.
Yeah, so I went to my buddy Dave Brown, who is also a high-level jiu-jitsu black belt. He won worlds as a brown belt, masters, former wrestler, great guy, one of my best friends. I've got two guys that I consider my best friend, and Dave is one of them. And even though we didn't serve in the military together, we met through jiu-jitsu. We just hit it off. He's like a year older than me, and he's got 3 daughters and a son, where I've got 2 daughters and a son, and we just kind of bonded through that. Well, there's a church in San Marcos, California called Awaken, and they're all over, and they do this Emerge men's camp once a year, which is a camping trip for men to get together and just talk about God, do fellowship, and they also bring their sons. So it's not just for just men, but men can also bring their sons too. And what they do is on Saturday morning, it starts on Thursday. On Saturday morning, there's rites of passage for young men. It's 12 to 18 years old, and it's a 2-mile obstacle and endurance course. And so it's pretty cool. Yeah. So the boys start off, and first of all, they take them away from their dads. So when they start the race, like, I can't do the race with him. He's got to do it himself. So there's all these other boys between 12 and 18 that are doing the race, and they'll encourage and help each other. And so they got to do this run. It's down this dirt trail, and they've got to climb over these obstacles, right? And then they've got to go underneath barbed wire. And then they got to carry sandbags a certain way. Then they got to run through this mud pit. They got to jump over a fire pit. They just got to carry this log up this big hill, right? And at the end, they've got men there holding football pads, and the boys have to run the gauntlet through the football pads, while the guys hit them, And my son was super nervous. He's never done anything like this. And he kept asking me, like, what are they going to do to me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know, dude. You're going to figure it out, but you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
All right? You're not going to be alone. All right? There's going to be other kids running it with you. And my son did so good. I was so proud of him. Awesome. And just to see him at the end, how it changed him and changed his confidence to get a dog tag at the end, like, hey, you completed this. And then I was like there to hug him, like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You did this. And, I saw some other kids that were just falling over, not being able to finish it. Now, of course, it's a church camp, so and some dads were like having to push their kids up over the obstacles. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have to do any of that with him. He attacked it. And my son you guys have met my son. He's quiet. He's very reserved, he's way better than I am in a lot of ways. He's very empathetic. He cares about other people better than I do. He's just, he's a good young man. I blame his mother. But I was just so proud of him. And just to see him complete that, and then already he started wrestling practice this Monday. And he loves it. I was really worried. I was really worried about it, because I was like, oh man, he didn't really like jiu-jitsu when I made him do jiu-jitsu, but he's loved wrestling. His coaches are making it fun, so they're doing it right. In fact, his friend came over this weekend who's a better wrestler than him, because he's done it before. Yeah. I set up mats in the garage. They went out there and practiced for an hour together.
That's awesome.
He has never asked me to practice anything on his own, right? Like, every time we're going out to do football, I'm like, come on, let's go play football. And he's like, okay, all right. Yeah. So Monday, after wrestling practice and after the weekend of doing this Emerge camp, he was on B team last year in football. He's like, Dad, I'm like, yeah. He goes, I don't want to be on B team next year. I want to be on A team.
Let's go.
And he was like, I want to do so well. The coaches have no choice but to play me.
Love that.
And I was like, where is Weston? What did you do with him? I've never heard my son
Love that, man. That's
talk
awesome.
so confidently and be so determined to do well. And I couldn't wait to get home and tell my wife. I was just like, babe, he's changing. He's changing.
Awesome.
It's awesome. You
Trying to be
know?
a man over here, yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome,
like
man.
he's just, and I think that camp had something to do with it. You know, he's still only 13. Testosterone hasn't kicked in yet, so he's not going to start kicking my butt probably until next year. But you know,
Just wait. You're gonna get some biceps overnight.
no, I think it'll be a while before he can kick my butt. But this wrestling practice is definitely going to help him.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
But yeah, it was really cool. And you know, when I was talking about like the SQT students, right, and which is SEAL qualification training, the guys that have graduated BUZZ but they're not quite SEALs yet, they have to go through another 5 months to learn more advanced skills. I asked them too. I was like, hey, how many of you? And this was before I would give them their man speech. Got a man speech from your dad, like, son, this is what it is to be a man. And most people would only, like, you know, a handful
Yeah.
of, you know, so the majority of them wouldn't. And I never got that speech from my dad either.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was important to give them a speech on what it was. You know, being a warrior is one thing, being a man is another. And they're two different things, right? You can be a warrior but not be a good man. To be a good man, you're both.
Yeah, I like that.
And so I would ask them, I'm like, all right, boys, all right, men, this is your man speech. And I would give it to them. And I literally gave them the speech I wish I would have gotten from my dad. I wish we'd been sitting around a campfire, drinking a beer like when I was 17 or something.
Yeah.
Like, boy, you're coming of age. This is what it is to be a man. I didn't get that, and I don't think a lot of men get that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give it to the guys that were becoming SEALs, that were getting ready to go over and face our nation's enemies. I wanted to give them a man speech before they did that. And so I would do that for the SQT students. And what I really liked about this church and this Emerge camp was in our society now, we don't have a rites of passage. And when you think about human history, right, you know, you look at Native American tribes, you look at the old Scottish tribes, and, you know, even, you know, in Africa, right, there's boys had to do something to earn manhood. What does it take? Well, what, you get a driver's license when you're 16?
Yeah.
You can buy cigarettes when you're 18.
Yeah.
And great. You can go get, you know, you can legally buy beer when you're 21. Do any of those things make you a man?
No.
No. Right? So what does?
And you are very right in pointing that out, that most people just equate age to it. I'm a man. But it has nothing to do with age, because there's grown-ass kids.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of 30-year-old boys walking around,
Oh yeah.
you know? But that's what was really cool about it. He got to go through this rites of passage.
Love that.
And now I'm like, son, you're becoming a man. And he got to go through something hard. And it wasn't just me. There were 3,000 people at this camp.
What's up?
geez,
It's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, right? But at the end of this thing were all these fathers cheering on all these sons. And he had this group of men just like, congratulations, young man. You know,
cool.
like, welcome to your beginning of manhood.
I like that.
You challenge yourself.
Really
You're
cool.
earning it, you know? And I wish our society had more to do that. But we can't, you know, society will never have that again. So it's up to us as husbands, as fathers,
Yep.
as
Friends.
future leaders, right, to make this for our young men, right? Which was so cool about the church that did that, right? And that's where we're going to find this stuff.
Yeah. For sure.
You know, we're going to find this, and we're going to find this in churches, right? We're going to find this in fellowship, and you know, there used to be the Boy Scouts, but you know, now it's whatever. That's Not the organization it used to be. But there are some like it, you know. But I think it's important. And Stefan, to your point about being a protector and a provider and adding leadership to that, you know, it starts when you're young.
I agree.
You know, and if we don't teach them, who is?
Mm-hmm.
It ain't gonna be Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
No.
True.
Those don't make men,
Yeah. If anything, that's the opposite.
right?
Very much so. Yeah, we need more of that in our society, honestly, because it starts young. It starts at that age. Accountability, responsibility, family, all these things. Like when it becomes important to you, and that's awesome to hear, honestly.
Yeah, and you know, Stefan and I are on the mats quite a bit, you know, and I believe that we find a lot of this in jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, where I found my best friend Dave was on the mats. You know, that fellow man that was just struggling to be the best father and husband he could, you know, for his family, right? And even on the mats, you know, like we bond with jiu-jitsu, but then we have deeper conversations, like how many friendships have been built and other things and networks and things from the mats. But what do we do first? We challenge ourselves.
We train.
Right? We train, right? And I know what you look like after training. I'm often like an Apollo sweat, like, you know, like I got to get these pajamas off. They're soaking wet, you know, but it's awesome, you know, and I talk about training jiu-jitsu a lot, you know, and my son doing wrestling now, because I told him, like, son, I'm not big into forcing him to do things, but I did tell him, as long as you live under this house, you're going to play football. You're going to play football, so you know what it's like to be part of a team, and you're going to do wrestling. You're going to do wrestling because it's going to make you mentally and physically tough.
Oh, yeah.
And once you leave, you know, once you're 18 and you move out, you don't ever have to do it again if you don't want. But the lessons you're going to learn from football and from wrestling, you will take with you the rest of your life, and I'm not going to rob you of that. I could let him whine. He hated football this year. I could let him whine, and I could let him, you know, not do it next year or whatever. But what do I really rob him of? All of those lessons. All of those lessons that he's going to learn throughout the years while he's learning to become a young man. And I'm not going to do that.
Right. And you're setting him up to be a SEAL. If he goes into the wrestling.
You know, when he was little, I mean, he'll have a better chance than just a football player will, right? But, you know, when he was little, he was like, I want to be a Navy SEAL firefighter like you, Dad. And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not pushing it on him. If he wants to be a SEAL, great.
Yeah.
If he wants to be, you know, cybersecurity in the Air Force, great. I don't care. It's his life. He's got to live his own life. If he doesn't want to join the military at all, right now we've been talking about him becoming an electrician, right? Learning a trade, because these things will always be around. He's got to live his life. SEAL was my dream.
Right.
Firefighter was just something that seemed cool, you know?
Yeah.
Now I get to live my dream by teaching firearms and self-defense, you know, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be his dream. You know, he can, whatever he wants to do, you know, I don't care. I'm just going to help him. I want him to be successful.
Yeah, for sure.
I want him to be happy, and, you know, but that's more what I care about, him becoming, you know, a productive member of society.
Right.
I like that.
Right. And that's a role as a father. You know, it's the guide. We don't come into this world knowing how we're supposed to handle the world, how we're supposed to approach it and stuff, but it's the father's role. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I hope I don't get it wrong.
You're doing a great job.
I read, you know, when I was done with my last deployment and I knew I was going to be taking instructor duty, I started devouring books on how to be a good husband and a good father. Because I knew how to be a good warrior, but I wasn't quite sure how to be a good husband, father, and man. You know, not that my dad was a bad one, but he wasn't always the best example either. And my wife and my children deserved it. They deserved me to study that.
For sure.
To be the best I could be, and I'm still figuring it out, right? Turns out God only made one perfect man, right?
Yeah.
His name was Jesus, and I try to walk in his footsteps, but I stumble along the way.
Sure.
I do the best I can.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when my children are parents, they'll look back and see that Dad did the best he could. I think that's all they can ask.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think your kids definitely have a great shot at being successful with what we see they're being taught.
They've got a great mom.
Love that.
Their mother is outstanding.
Yeah. Would y'all have anything else? All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us today with the Patriot Point Show. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We hope to bring you as much value as possible in the coming future. And until next time.